I need to share something that turned my entire world upside down. This is not just a story about money. It's about trust, betrayal, and the painful moment when the person you thought you could rely on ends up being the one who hurts you the most. It all started last week when I logged in to check my bank account. I noticed a strange transaction that didn't belong to me. At first, I thought it might be a simple banking error, something small, maybe a charge that would sort itself out. But something in my gut told me to dig deeper. So, I pulled up my credit report. That's when my heart sank. Right there, in bold black letters, was a list of accounts I had never seen before. Not one, not two, but 15 credit cards under my name. 15. All of them maxed out, all of them active, and all of them supposedly mine. The total debt? Nearly $94,000. I just sat there staring at the screen, frozen. My student loans, about $28,000, were already weighing on me, but this was something else entirely. Almost $60,000 in personal credit debt I never signed up for. My credit score, which I had been working so hard to build, had plummeted to 582. Years of effort, gone in an instant. At first, I honestly thought maybe my identity had been stolen. Maybe some stranger had somehow gotten access to my information and decided to wreck my financial life. But as I looked closer, some of the details didn't add up. The billing addresses, the purchase patterns, the timing, it all seemed too familiar. That's when a horrifying thought hit me. Could it be my own dad? I didn't want to believe it. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. My dad has always struggled with money. He's the kind of person who tries to maintain an image of stability, even when he's drowning. He never asked for help, but I know he's been behind on bills more than once. And then it clicked. He would have had access to my social security number. He helped me file my first taxes. He co-signed some of my early paperwork. He had everything he needed to do this. My chest tightened. My hands started to shake. It wasn't some faceless hacker in another country. It was the man who raised me. The man I trusted more than anyone. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept replaying it in my head. 15 credit cards. Nearly $100,000. My name. My future. My credit destroyed. The worst part? I didn't even know what to do. Do I confront him? Do I call the banks? Do I talk to a lawyer? Or do I just stay quiet and hope somehow this nightmare goes away? I felt completely stuck. Because on one hand, this is fraud. It's a crime. On the other hand, it's my dad. My younger sister still lives with him, still depends on him. If I report him, I could ruin his life, her life, and maybe even tear the entire family apart. But if I stay silent, my own life is ruined. And that's where I was when all of this began. Broken, betrayed, and torn between protecting my father and protecting myself. The next morning, I woke up after barely 2 hours of sleep. My head was pounding, my stomach felt sick, and every time I thought about looking at that credit report again, my chest tightened. I stared at the numbers over and over. 15 credit cards, $94,000 in debt. My name attached to all of it. How could my dad do this? How could the man who taught me how to ride a bike, the man who cheered at my school plays, the man who told me to always be honest, betray me like this? For a while, I actually questioned myself. Maybe there was another explanation. Maybe the banks messed up. Maybe there was a huge mistake. I wanted so badly to believe that because the alternative felt too heavy to carry. But as I went through each account, I saw the truth written between the lines. Purchases at stores near his house. Payments made around the same times I knew he was struggling with bills. The puzzle pieces fit together, whether I wanted them to or not. I remember sitting on my bed, staring at the wall, feeling completely paralyzed. If I confronted him, what would I even say? Dad, did you steal $60,000 from me? The words felt impossible to form. And then there was my little sister. She still lives with him. She still depends on him. She's only 16, and she has no idea what's happening. What if this blows up and she's caught in the middle? The guilt twisted inside me. I felt like no matter what I chose, someone's life would be ruined. Either mine or his. But the reality was clear. My life was already unraveling. My credit score was destroyed. Getting a car loan, renting an apartment, even applying for certain jobs, it would all become harder. Maybe even impossible. I knew I couldn't just sit there. I had to do something. But every option came with a cost. Option 1. Confront my dad directly. Maybe he would confess. Maybe he would agree to fix it. But what if he denied it? What if he got angry and cut me out of his life? Option 2. Go straight to the banks. Tell them this was fraud, even though it meant exposing my own father. The banks would likely investigate, and if they confirmed it was him, it could lead to criminal charges. Option 3. Talk to a lawyer. Get professional advice, but risk creating a paper trail that might eventually bring my dad down. I kept bouncing between them like a pendulum, swinging from fear to anger to sadness and back again. And in the middle of all of this chaos, one thought kept echoing in my mind. How could he do this to me? Because in the end, This wasn't just about money. It was about trust, about the kind of relationship I thought I had with my dad, and realizing that maybe I never really knew him at all. That night, I finally worked up the courage to call my best friend. I hadn't told anyone yet, not even my boyfriend. I just needed someone who knew me well enough to hear the panic in my voice and not judge me for it. When she picked up, I didn't even know where to start. My throat tightened, and all I could get out was, "Something's wrong. Really, really wrong." I explained everything. The credit cards, the debt, the way all the purchases pointed back to my dad. By the time I finished, I was crying so hard I could barely breathe. She was quiet for a long moment before finally saying, You know this isn't your fault, right?" None of it. But it didn't feel that way. How could it not be my fault? It was my name on those accounts, my credit score in ruins. I was the one who would pay the price for years. She reminded me that my dad had made the choice, not me. But knowing that didn't make the pain easier to carry. The next day, I decided to test the waters. I went over to my parents' house for dinner. My sister was there, cheerful as always, completely oblivious. My dad seemed relaxed, even happy, laughing at jokes, telling stories like nothing was wrong. I sat there across the table from him, staring at the man who had wrecked my future, and I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand answers. But instead, I swallowed my words and forced a smile. When my sister left the table to grab dessert, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I looked at him and quietly asked, "Dad, have you ever taken out credit cards in my name?" The way he froze told me everything I needed to know. His fork hovered halfway to his mouth. His eyes flickered for just a second before he shook his head. "What? Of course not. Why would you even think that?" I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him. But the lie was written all over his face. I pressed a little harder. I mentioned the accounts, the purchases. He brushed it off, said banks make mistakes all the time. Said I must have read the report wrong. It felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Not only had he betrayed me, he was looking me in the eye and denying it. That night, I went home feeling more lost than ever. Confronting him hadn't given me answers. It had just confirmed my worst fear. He wasn't going to admit it, at least not willingly. And that left me standing at a crossroads. If he wouldn't take responsibility, then the only way forward was to act on my own. But every step I thought about taking, lawyer, police, banks, it all came back to the same question. Was I ready to turn my own father in? The next few days felt like walking through quicksand. Every step forward seemed to drag me deeper into uncertainty. My dad kept acting as if nothing had happened, laughing with my sister at dinner, asking me casually about work, and even cracking small jokes like old times. On the surface, he looked like the same father I had trusted my entire life. But beneath that mask, I now saw something else, a man capable of betraying me in ways I never thought possible. At work, it became harder to focus. My mind kept drifting back to the numbers on my credit report. 15 credit cards. $94,000. A ruined credit score that would shadow me for years. I thought about all the milestones I had been working toward, maybe buying a home in a few years, upgrading my car, or even just applying for a new credit card of my own someday. Now all of that had been stolen from me before I even had the chance to try. Every time my phone buzzed, I felt sick. Was it another alert from the bank? Was a debt collector going to start calling me at work? The paranoia was constant. I kept refreshing my accounts, terrified that new charges would appear under my name without warning. At night, I would lie awake thinking about what confrontation would even look like. If I went directly to my dad, what would I say? Why did you do this? How could you betray me like that? And more importantly, would he even admit it? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that confronting him without a plan could backfire. He could deny everything, hide the evidence, or even make me feel guilty for accusing him. So I started documenting. Every account number, every suspicious transaction, every detail that proved I wasn't the one who opened those cards. It felt like building a case, not just against some random stranger, but against my own father. That thought made me sick, but I knew it was necessary. One night, I sat at my desk staring at the growing folder of documents and screenshots. My chest tightened as I thought about the reality ahead. If I pursued this formally, it could mean pressing charges. It could mean my dad facing legal consequences that would shatter my family. But if I didn't, I would be left carrying the weight of nearly $100,000 in debt that wasn't even mine. The unfairness of it all ate at me. I hadn't asked for any of this. I had been responsible, careful, and honest. Yet here I was, forced into a situation that threatened not only my financial future, but my relationship with my family as well. In those moments, I realized that I couldn't solve this overnight. This wasn't just about debt or numbers on a report. This was about betrayal, trust, and survival. And as much as I hated it, I knew that the road ahead would be long, messy, and painful. But one thing had become clear: ignoring it wasn't an option anymore. The more I thought about it, the more the walls began to close in. I couldn't eat properly, couldn't laugh, couldn't enjoy even the smallest things. My friends started asking if I was okay, because I seemed distracted all the time. I gave vague answers, saying I was just stressed from work, but inside I was screaming. How could I explain to anyone that my own father had put me in this mess? One afternoon, I finally decided to test the waters. I went to visit my parents' house under the pretense of dropping off some groceries. My dad was sitting in the living room, watching TV, completely relaxed. For a second, I just stood there staring at him. This was the man who taught me to ride a bike, who cheered for me at every school event, who told me that honesty was the most important value a person could have. And yet here he was, acting like nothing was wrong, even though he had stolen my financial future. I sat down across from him and asked casually, "Dad, do you ever check your credit score?" He looked surprised, then laughed and said, "Not really." "Why? Is something wrong with yours?" My heart pounded. His tone was light, but the question cut deep. I wondered, was this genuine ignorance, or was he testing me to see if I knew? I wanted so badly to shout the truth at him, but instead I just nodded and said, "Yeah, mine has some weird stuff on it. I'm trying to figure it out." His eyes flickered for the briefest second before he looked back at the TV. Maybe I imagined it, but it felt like guilt. That small exchange told me everything I needed to know. He was aware. He just wasn't ready to admit it. That night, I cried harder than I had in years. The betrayal wasn't abstract anymore. It was real. He had looked me in the eyes and chosen to lie by omission. The next day, I called a financial advisor and explained my situation without naming names. She listened carefully and then said something that stuck with me. This is identity theft. It doesn't matter if it was a stranger or someone you love. The law treats it the same way. Her words cut through my hesitation like a knife. I didn't want to think of my dad as a criminal, but that's exactly what he had become when he opened those accounts in my name. Whether I liked it or not, I was the victim of a crime. Still, my heart wasn't ready to press charges. My sister depended on him financially, and the thought of shattering her world made me hesitate. But at the same time, I couldn't carry this burden forever. So I made a decision. I would confront him directly, but this time I would be prepared. I gathered all the documents I had collected, printed them out, and placed them in a folder. If he denied it, I would show him the proof. And if he still denied it, then I would have no choice but to take the next step, reporting it to the authorities. As I prepared for that confrontation, I felt a strange mix of fear and determination. Fear of what this would do to my family, but determination that I wouldn't let my life be destroyed in silence. I didn't know how he would react. Maybe he would admit it and beg for forgiveness. Maybe he would explode in anger and deny everything. Or maybe, just maybe, he would reveal something deeper that I hadn't seen before. Either way, I knew one thing for certain. This conversation would change everything. After everything, I finally told my best friend what had happened. She was shocked. She said, "I warned you about him. He always looked suspicious. But I never thought he'd hurt you this much." For the first time, I didn't cry while telling the story. Instead, I felt stronger. Like I wasn't the same weak girl who begged for love anymore. I looked at my reflection in the mirror and thought, I don't need him. I never did. I only needed myself. It wasn't easy, but step by step, I started moving forward. I cut off all contact, blocked his number, and deleted every picture. And slowly, my heart began to heal. Weeks later, he tried to contact me again. From fake numbers, from mutual friends, even from random social accounts. But this time, I didn't reply. I didn't even feel the urge to open his messages. My silence was my answer. And I knew that hurt him more than any words ever could. Because finally, he realized, the girl he once played with was gone forever. I wasn't broken anymore. I was free. Months passed. My credit was slowly repairing, my savings were growing again, and most importantly, my peace returned. I no longer woke up with anxiety about what he might do next. I no longer replayed his lies in my head at night. Instead, I focused on myself, my career, my goals, my little sister's future. And you know what? I realized I didn't lose anything. He lost me. He lost my trust, my love, and the version of me who believed in him. Now, I walk forward stronger, sharper, and wiser. And I'll never let anyone, family or not, destroy my life again.